Aloha, Hariom, Namaste, Hotep and Lakesh, Asamaloego, Aho, Mataki Austin. My name is Stephen Busher. Some people know me as Scooby Hugs, and some people know me as Onama Scubaya. But I have probably the two most influential people in my life here on a video conference with me today. They are with the Lakota Nation, and they have a lot to tell us. Because a lot of people out here in the world don't know about how the Lakota or Native American people grow up, what it's like to be in a reservation, and it's an honor to have you both. We're going to talk about a lot of things. My biological family disowned me because I was in a hospital for a long time, and I met these two individuals at a festival called Tribal Visions, which was to bring different tribes together. And they took me in as one of their own. And I've never felt so honored and respected. And I love these people with all my life. And we're going to do probably a couple videos of them because they have so much to share about their culture, their life, how they grew up. So let's start. Let's start with you, Gmal. Tell us your name and where you were born, and let's start with that.
Um, okay. So since I'm a doctor, I cannot say my legal name, but I go by my profession of, like acting purposes and performance. I go by Medicine Medicinebird. And I was born in Michigan, and my parents were born in northern Michigan near Canada, and all my grandparents are from Canada.
Okay. May I ask what you're a doctor in?
Educational psychology. I'm a research scientist.
Wow, that's phenomenal. How many years of school is that?
A lot. 5 years to get a PhD.
Um, gosh, I have so many questions. You're one of the best performers I've ever met as far as traditional Native American dancing. When did you start getting into that practice?
I started getting that practice when I was in my late 20s. Um, and it was after I got out of the military and after I worked for the federal government. Well, I still worked when I was there, but it started uh, while I was working in 1988 or maybe 87 with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we started going to powwows and stuff in parks, and then that's how we met other natives. And then we shared our cultural things with each other, like drumming and just life ways, and so that's where it began. And then also while I was there too, I started a Native American organization with the Department of Veterans Affairs right there in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. And still to this day, they still have a sweat lodge, or we call in Lakota Inipi, on the grounds of the at the VA hospital.
Wow. It's amazing how many people don't know about this information. Right now, I live in a international hostel with people from many countries, and I explained that the both of you were at a powwow, and believe it or not, nobody knew here what a powwow was. And it's shocking to me. So maybe if you could give me a 1 minute, like, what is a powwow to you and your culture?
So powwows were kind of actually what I know from my mother and father's people. They were gatherings. They weren't called powwows, and I don't even know what the acronyms for powwow is. But they would have gatherings at particular times of the year, and it kind of represents the emphasis on the old cultural thought about the families coming together before they had to go to winter camp, or they went to summer camp, or they went to the ricing camp, or so it started that way there. But it wasn't until like the later 70s that actual powwows came out, because it was actually, I think it between 1960 and 1962 was still illegal for Native Americans here to practice any of their culture publicly. And so
Right.
even my grandmother did that part.
And that's something I want to touch on. I was trying to explain. Were you not allowed to leave the reservation or perform in front of people? Was that like a law that was set?
Way back when, before, that was before even, before the boarding school days, and, there was like two boarding school eras, late 1800s and early 1900s. And, at that time, they were allowed to go and come, but they had to have passes to get from one place to another. And so, that was then. It wasn't until probably when we were made American citizens in 1923. The Native Americans across the U.S. were made citizens without our consent in 1923 and 1924. So my father and my grandparents were not United States citizens until then. Actually,
Okay.
half my family came from Canada and half came from the United States, and at that time they got split up.
Yeah, it's just I'm trying to bring awareness to the world because I'll be honest, when I first went up to the reservation, I didn't realize there was a separation between South Dakota and North Dakota that was so large. Nobody ever told me this in school. It blew my mind. And that's why I appreciate the both of you on video because I want to help spread the awareness of there are things inside America like these reservations that are the size of entire United States that people don't know about. And
Two reservations where they're really large. One is the Ogallala or the Lakota Nation, particularly Pine Ridge Reservation, and the Dene Nation. They have a lot of land and whatever. The other ones are smaller tribes. They were bigger at one time, but through time, all the lands were depleted
wow,
down
that's
to maybe 20, 30 miles even.
yeah, a lot of the Peruvians here respect the Lakota because something similar happened to the Peruvians. The Spanish came here and wiped out millions of Peruvian people. They tried to destroy the ruins, but they couldn't. And that's why this interview is so important for many reasons. I remember first meeting the both of you, and I was like a little nervous. I didn't know what to do. So I kept making coffee. And I know Renee loves coffee. Renee can't hear me well, but let's learn a little bit about Renee. If you could talk about him, a little bit about where he came from and how long he's lived on the reservation, and different things that he does. Um,
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, first of all, I did not come from the Pine Ridge Reservation. I came out to reservation because I was attending ceremony out here and I never left. And I had a whole
Oh.
family with me. And so we actually lived in a teepee and then a small cabin without running water for about 5 years. And that's how we got here. I wanted to go back to nature because it was important for me, and I wanted my kids to experience me as a mother first, because I was just like not spending time with them. I was a single mother, and the other part was just getting close to some native culture and also earthways. And so, and then he's been out here since the time he married into the tribe. His family are the Mills, where Billy Mills, the runner who won a gold medal in the Olympics, came from. That's his cousin. And so his grandfather lived here, not too far away from here, actually. And they, a lot of them just split up and went different ways or whatever. So he, as part Ogallala Sioux, and he's also from the reservation up in Nevada. What's the reservation called?
It's Western Shoshone.
Western Shoshone tribe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my great granddad was born in Fort Laramie, Wyoming in 1871, and my grandfather, I mean, my great granddad was part of the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, and that's something very important to the Lakota Sioux people, Dakota and Dakota, and other tribes. Also, the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty. See, you have to understand specifically about the Lakota Sioux tribe, the Oglala's Lakota Sioux tribe, and the history. And they've been here in this Black Hills area for hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe even over 2,000 years. But the thing is, we had a lot of trouble starting from the 1803 Louisiana Purchase, which included all the Sioux land or the Black Hills, and eventually wound up in the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, where the Black Hills and the Great Sioux Nation was in that treaty, and that's extended from the Wyoming border clear over to the Missouri River. It was a very vast tract of land. And by 1877, the Black Hills specifically was expropriated from that treaty. And then by the 1897 and 89, the 87 Dawes Act partitioned, it was called the Allotment Act, made smaller reservations where we are today with the 1889 Act that made Pine Ridge, Standing Rock, Rosebud, Lower Burrowville, Cheyenne River. There's 5 major reservations there west of the Missouri that was established. So all that land became public domain in the Black Hills, and also Homestead Act land of 1862. And there was a Homestead Act in 1906 that allowed for non-Indian or white people to come in and settle it and get a 168-acre fee patent if they paid $2.50 for their land. So the reservations were significantly downsized to very small areas. And then also there's what they call checkerboard areas, where some of it is county land and some of it is tribal land. But anyway, my dad grew up here in Porcupine, and I grew up in Reno, Nevada with my mother and her tribe, Powell, Nevada, called the Shoshone Paiute tribe. But I came back here in 1978 to enroll into the Sioux tribe and cancel out my Shoshone tribe, and I'm a member of the Ogallala Lakota Sioux tribe, where my father was born and where my granddad lives.
Now, was your grandfather, I'm just thinking about dates, was he part of the Trail of Tears?
No, that's the Trail of Tears was the tribes from the east, like the Cherokee and other bands that
Okay.
came from the east.
Yeah.
And they followed the Trail of Tears. I think it's northern Arkansas across all the way to the west.
But that was Andrew Jackson. See, at that time, after 1803, the U.S. took on a whole new role of making new treaties, because British North America had all the treaties from the Appalachians to the Mississippi up to Canada and the East Coast. So when the 1776 revolution occurred, all the new treaties had to be renegotiated by the 1889 U.S. Constitution and the U.S. government. So Andrew Jackson was a part of that Trail of Tears in terms of being a president, but he also was a warrior that fought the Miami Indians in around 1804, 5, 6, and 7. There was a lot of war against the Native Americans Andrew Jackson was a part of that. When he became president, he had an executive order where they rounded up virtually about 10 to 15,000 Cherokee and other tribes, and the land over in Oklahoma was part of the Louisiana Purchase. They relocated everybody out of the East Coast and put them over there in that area, Indian country, they called it. So the Trail of Tears is on that march was forced. Quite a few number, maybe a few thousand people died on the way over. That's why I call it Tears, because people died on that journey, and it took a while to move everybody out of the East Coast. So with the 1776 revolution and the 1835 presidency, they had to remove, it's called the Indian Removal Act. They had to remove the Indians and expropriate all their land and put them in Oklahoma with that land that the U.S. claimed to own. So that's how the Trail of Tears came about.
Yeah. So that many wars were started over about the illegal acts of the federal government, as far as they wrote treaties with the Indians, but they never honored any of the treaties. And the treaties should have been come first before, because it's supposed to be part of the whole thing about Indians and their lands or whatever. But as far as putting them on different lands and making laws for taking children out of their homes, even babies, and sending them off way across the country to Carlisle. So still today, the treaties are not being honored, and the Indians are still calling for the federal government to honor those treaties that they made with the Indians in the first place. Because if they don't want to honor the Indians, how are we? They don't want to honor the treaties that were made, which is the supreme law of the land. Then how can we protect our lands against what is called encroachment still today by mining companies, oil companies, and any companies that want to come and cut all the trees down and the land, poison the land? So that's the big fight that why Standing Rock was started. I mean, I cried when Standing Rock happened. There was like thousands of all these people came together, and it happened with my family too. I mean, my family comes from Standing Rock. My uncles and aunties come from Standing Rock. So I thought it was great. It was like a historical event that will not be forgotten even by our grandchildren, that when you get a whole bunch of people together, it's possible to make change. And although it didn't go the way that we expected it to go, nevertheless, it's written in books about what our Indians did try to do. And as far as keeping the land safe and the water safe.
Yeah, for the viewer's sake, I want to explain when a lot of times Native American militant young men, they say stop decolonization. You have to really look at it this way. From 1609, 1608, the British North America was the first colonization. We can't talk about the Spanish, but then the French came in there in the St. Lawrence and Canada area, Quebec, Montreal. That was a form of colonization. But the America Revolution was based on from the English revolution, the break with the English government and parliament. Okay, so we look at the first wave. Then by 1753 to 63, there was the 7 Years' War over here. That was the First World War in Europe, where England and France were fighting on a massive scale, even up to Asia and India. And they fought in this country. The English had Native American mercenaries, and the French did, so they had what they call the Indian Wars, but it wasn't the Indian Wars. It was the French and English fighting, and the French lost the war in Europe, and therefore they lost the war in this continent. So in 1763, France was kicked out of the land west of the Appalachians to the Mississippi, and now the British North America was from the East Coast up to the Mississippi, up to Canada, and down to New Orleans, and above Florida, where Spain had it. The third movement came in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase, which Thomas Jefferson facilitated and all the land west of the Mississippi up to the Rockies towards Oregon and up in Canada and Montana were part of the Louisiana Purchase. So there's three waves, and that wasn't colonization. Decolonizing had to do with 1606 and 1609. So what we're really looking at is a western expansion with Louisiana Purchase and the migration. You might call them migrants or pioneers, whatever names you want to give them, moved westward because Thomas Jefferson was an agrarian and he wanted to expand the farmland and production. Okay. So that led up to where the Black Hills was. And they made the new government of 1889 Constitution uh, with the presidents there, and the U.S. government made treaties up and down the Mississippi to the Great Lakes where her tribe was. 1845, I believe, was the first treaty signed, new ones negotiated under the United States of America. And then eventually that wound up with the 1851 treaty, which allowed for wagon trains and railroads and roads built, and the Bozeman Trail and the Oregon Trail for Western migration. Then we had the Sioux War of 1866 area where Red Cloud said enough is enough. We're getting too many migrants coming in close to the Great Sioux Nation. And so the U.S. lost that war and they removed their military forts in 1851 treaty. Okay, so by the 1861 treaty, we already had the Continental Railroad established a few years before that in Providence, Utah. So the east and west coast were connected. But then there was gold discovered, in the 1849s out west. So in 1868, in 1866, it came to pass where the U.S. government, after the Civil War, was in debt by over $2 billion. Before the war, they were in debt only 60 million national debt. So they were going broke and they had to recover the money to the treasury by printing money that wasn't backed by gold. So in 1873, there was a recession, almost like the stock market crash of 29, and people panicked. And they needed the gold to back the US dollar in the treasury. So they heard rumors of gold in the Black Hills, and they sent General Custer with a contingent of 1,000 men and wranglers and photographers and geologists and scientists to go look for that gold, and they found it. So when they found the gold, the reporters came back to the east coast and made claims that you can find gold under the grassroots on the mountains there. It was abundant. You can just pick it up. So all these people started moving there. And in 18
It goes against the tree.
when General Grant was president, he had a secret meeting with the military and Department of War and Bureau of Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs. What they did is they told the U.S. Army to stand down. They were supposed to guard the Black Hills border to keep illegal migrants from coming in there. But when all this migration came in by the tens of thousands, and eventually being over 100,000 to the Black Hills, the Army turned a blind eye, just like they did with the open borders here and let tens of millions of people in. They let tens of thousands of migrants illegally crossing the border of the Great Sioux Nation, and the military didn't protect it. And therefore, by 1877, after the 1876 defeat of Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn, the word got back to the East Coast a few days later, and people were very irate and mad. And in 1877, they were determined to get the gold, so they passed the 1877 Many-Penny Act, which expropriated the Black Hills. Therefore, all the gold and miners came in there, and that stands today as an expropriation and a broken treaty of the 1868. And as of today, like even today, now, in this very moment, the Lakota people are trying to reconcile and rectify that breach of the 1868 contract. What they won a court case in 1980 with the Supreme Court is that the U.S. Constitution, the Fifth Amendment, requires you to pay monetary compensation when the lands are taken or annexed as public domain or eminent domain, but the government never paid the Sioux people any money. So in 1980, the Supreme Court ruled that the US government broke the Fifth Amendment as well as the 68 treaty and never paid the Sioux for all the land. But they did, the Supreme Court can give land back, but they can make compensation. So they awarded 105 million then, which now is over $2 billion sitting in escrow in a trust fund account. And the Sioux people refused to take that. So we're at that level today with the Black Hills, getting the land back, it's called.
Yeah, yeah, they have these organizations in the Black Hills called Land Back. So that's a little bit about the
I appreciate that history. I want to ask you a question that everybody asks me, and you could tell me, was he Lakota? Everybody asked me, who was Sitting Bull?
Sitting Bull was there's like different tribes under a certain, there's the Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota. And Sitting
Okay.
Bull was Lakota under the Teton Sioux, but one of the bands of the Teton Sioux is called Hunkpapa. And so Sitting Bull was a Hunkpapa. So that's where that's what his tribe is, or his band name is Hunkpapa. And so there's
Okay.
different bands, and then there's also, and then the three main, it comes under like an umbrella, like I said, the Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota. That the Nakota more or less kind of escaped to Canada, and there are a lot of Nakota up there, and there's the Dakota. So on my father's side in northern Michigan, he is part Dakota. Actually, the language is the Ojibwe Dakota dialect. And so and that's how I'm related to Lakota. That's how I'm related to Grandpa Sitting Bull, was on my uncles and aunties' side, who lived on a reservation at Keweenaw Bay, Michigan, and other northern reservations.
Yeah, under the
Did he have a
1868
tragic
treaty.
accident, like he broke his neck or something like that? I had heard through
No, he was
stories.
killed. He was killed.
He was
Assassinated.
killed.
Yes.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
Another question a lot of people ask here in Peru, because I know you do a lot of ceremonies in your tradition. Here in Peru, it's quite interesting. Everybody does ayahuasca, psychedelic mushrooms, San Pedro, also known as Wuchuma, and it's almost available in stores everywhere. And I know you guys don't do that. How are your ceremonies different than the medicine that they use here?
Well, traditionally, we didn't have ceremonies that involved psychedelics or anything among the Lakota nations. But early in the 1800s, the peyote religion came among the tribes and came up to South Dakota. And so
Right.
that's where the peyote medicine came from. It's a special ceremony that they do, and they call it it's called the Native American Church, and it's an all-night ceremony.
Yeah, because see, up here the weather is too cold for that kind of medicine to grow. The peyote came from the Huichol Indians and several other tribes down in Chihuahua, Mexico, North Mexico. And they're the ones that spread that on up through the various tribes going north, and eventually wound up here in Pine Ridge in late 1880s, around the time of the ghost dance. So we didn't use that type of medicine, but the southern tribes, Apache and other tribes down south, Comanche used that medicine down there. So it's different from the ones in Peru because we're looking at various cultural differences, North America and South America.
Right. Even among the Lakota, the different bands have different cultural things. What I'm wearing today is the Dalian, and that's like a Dakota style, a cultural way. Yep. And so that's why I wear this, because I'm part Dakota, and I am a great niece of my grandpa. So that's why I wear this. I wear the hat because I like it. But
You know,
we,
I've been all around the world. I know both of you have been to every continent, including Antarctica. But I've never seen a place where I'm at right now. It's called Pisac, Peru, and it's called the Sacred Valley. And I don't know if it's the medicine, I don't know if it's the people, but here's a challenge for the viewers right now. If I can get 1,000 subscribers in the next 2 weeks, I will fly the both of you out here so you could see our culture here in Peru, if you'd like to do that.
he would like to go back to Peru.
Yeah, I've been to Peru before.
I just don't want to go south and get, tangled up in a snake or something.
Oh
But I
no,
wanted
no,
to-
I don't go to the Amazon either. We're in the high mountains of the Sacred Valley, and Pisac. We have no deadly snakes, no deadly spiders. The weather's perfect. But what's amazing is the people are so nice. And I don't know if it's the medicine, I don't know if it's their culture, but that's my what I want to give to the audience is,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay,
views are something, but if people can just click that subscribe button,
Right.
if I can get 1,000 subscribers, we'll fly you out here. I'd love to show you
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
We're building, the hostel owners own 2 hostels here, and we're building a long-term community 3 miles up the road. And you're just
I
very
want to
important people.
I wanted to share you the difference between probably them and us down here. Up
Okay?
is that you said the peace and how they are and whatever. They haven't really been spoiled, not spoiled, but probably what do you call it? Had historical trauma like the Plains Indians have, or any of the Native Americans here in America has. And so
Absolutely.
it's called, and I saw it with my aunties and my uncles, and I didn't know how to describe it or what it was until I went to school. What it is unconditional positive regard, and it comes through the cultures. And it was once part of our people. And my aunties and uncles, they didn't have any fear. They were really passive, and they never yelled. And it was, and when you were standing next to them, you could feel that, like what they had, that unconditional positive regard, because they walk a different way. Their energy is completely different. And they don't, and I wanted to see that. And I got to meet my aunties and uncles before they left the earth. And that's what you're probably describing, how they are, how they were.
Very community,
Mhm.
very community based. Something I want to share about myself, it's kind of hard is, you know, when my family abandoned me, I almost lost myself. I went into deep depression, and then I found you two, and you adopted me into your family. Does that happen often, or like what made you decide that I was special enough to be part of your family and community?
We are all special, Scooby Doo. We're all a part in that sacred circle of life. We're a collective cultural beings. Us Native Americans, we still kind of practice those kind of virtues still today about being in the circle. Like if you see a kid going wrong or whatever, you have to remember that they are still in a circle, and the people need to come together to help that child, to help that person that might be going different, get depressed or something like that. And so when I seen that with you, I've already experienced it myself in my life. But when I got over here to the Lakota Oglala people, I felt like they said there are never no orphans. Everybody has a grandma and grandpa. If I want a grandma or grandpa now, even though I'm getting older, I can find me one. If I'm a teenager and whatever, and my mom and dad can't handle me, sometimes the parents will say, "We need to go get you another mother and a father," because when you're growing up and a kid, the mother and father should never scold. Number one, parents should not scold or abuse their children. And so they'll get another parent, auntie, uncle to help out with the raising of that child. Because, back in the old day when we were still collective and we were around those, we call it Hochuka, that circle, that sacred circle. When they camped that way too, they treated their kids, everybody took care of that child. That's a Lakota virtue. Everybody took
Beautiful.
care of that child. So there's no orphans here and whatever. And I felt a kinship here. And so that's why I stayed here. And if I was to go to my mother or father's reservations, I didn't grow up with them. I was taken away from my parents. And I grew up because I was sickly, and they had abandoned me in a house. I had to stay in a hospital for 2 years. And when I came out, they put me someplace else. So didn't have that with my parents. And I only saw my grandmother once. I didn't see my grandfathers. I just saw my grandmother once. And so I wanted to make sure that anybody that I saw, and that heart, that chante, that washte chante waka, like holy heart, that when I see people that need something, then I will do something about it. So I have many adopted children and grandchildren, and
It's
other
just
people call me auntie and grandma here. So
the most amazing thing. I mean, probably hours before I met you two, I had given up and I had a plan. And I hate to admit this on TV, but then you guys brought me in and I stayed at your house for a while. We did some festivals together and I felt like for the first time a family loved me and I really appreciate the both of you.
Yeah.
always.
Yeah, I wanted to say something here. See, I'm gonna be 80 years old in a few days, so I just call myself
Wow.
80. He's gonna be 70 in a few days, so we're both 70 and 80. And I spent a good over 12 years from 1999 to 2012 traveling to the 7 continents. So I completed that journey by the end of the Mayan calendar. At one point, I was down in Peru. I had I went to a place called Huayna Picchu, which is the other side of Machu Picchu, because the female
Yeah.
aspect of that sacred mountain there, I made a prayer. And then I went over to the Nazca area, the Nazca mines, and stuff, made prayers there because it was those ancient tribal people. And then I was down in Ushuaia, Chile, right down the land of Terra del Fuego, and was making prayers. There's an Indian tribe, two of them down there, one 12,000 years ago and one 14. But the 12,000 years ago was a Yamana, and I was making prayers there. So kind of, and also Tikal. So I am familiar with the southern hemisphere there with Tikal in Guatemala and Huayna Picchu, and down in Ushuaia with the Yamana tribe that lived there thousands of years ago. But the thing is, for me, being 80, I have a lifetime experiences of many different things, and I'm looking forward to living to be 100 years old the next 20 years. And the more experiences I learn, the same way with Jeannie. But I have higher education too, an AA, BA, and MA degree, and I went for my doctorate but never finished. But all that education is one thing, but it's also spiritual education. Spiritual knowledge is very important. So I am a spiritual leader and a reverend and what they call a roadman, peyote roadman in Native American church, South Dakota. But also, her and I, we also practice Buddhism, which would be a Thich Nhat Hanh version, and a Tibetan Buddhism, and a Shiva sect of the Hindu religion. We pray with those, but I'm primarily a Christian, integrated with our traditional Lakota Sundance and Sacred Pipe, which I took around the world to various places. And I've seen a lot of different tribes and people, and the difference with Inca people down there. I was down in Inca, a small village over there on the other side of Cusco, where I had a young medicine man do a Inca ceremony with the 3 leaves of the cocoa plant, and he also used a guinea pig, and he did a ceremony for me in his private home, and I made friends with him. So I was down in Peru, and I understand the ancient Inca people versus the conquistadores of Spanish who conquered Peru, and now we have a hybrid mixture, and Spanish as a language down there. But there is an ancient language of the Inca, and their
Oh, yeah.
marvelous architecture with the stone. But they also used steel from outer space. They used a lot of the meteorites they found. Some of them are big as oranges, and they had that metal to use. Where our people, we didn't have metal like that. Her people had copper at best on the Great Lakes.
May I ask you a big favor? And you could say no, but can you share one of your prayers? It doesn't have to be long, but I don't think most of the world has heard an authentic Lakota person hear one of your prayers. And I think it would be an honor and respect if you could just, it could be 30 seconds, it could be 2 minutes, if you're up for that.
You want a drum?
Hmm?
Want a drum? We'll say toka.
Yeah, we can get it.
Okay. Okay, so I sing in Lakota, and so I sing in several languages or whatever, but we'll do a prayer in Lakota.
Gracias. A home in Takuyasan.
I sing peyote songs, so, and some Sundance songs.
We're gonna do a prayer song. Look ahead.
One of my favorites. Gracias. Thank you. I also want to say something that people might not know. The phrase "aho mitakuyasin" means that we are all related.
Right.
And maybe you can elaborate on that so people can understand that term.
Well, Mitakias, we're all related. We're related to everything that is living in this life. The trees, the grass, animals, everything, the moon, everything that's in our life is we're all connected to everything, the stars, everything, human beings. And so we have to remember that when we say something and we finish saying something from our mouth, we say me talk else and we gotta remember that when we get angry too, it's like
Yes.
talk yes, and we're all related. Don't get mad. Don't be some way. You're like my brother, you're my sister, you're my grandma, your grandpa. And so related in that Hochoka, that holy sacred circle of life.
Now, there's over 500 and probably 50 federal recognized tribes, but the Lakota Sioux, they have a paradigm that's different from the Western paradigm in a sense that our relationship to physical reality, in the Western paradigm, it's them and us. In other words, it's a dichotomy or binary in a sense that uh, nature's out there and we're over here. This paradigm integrates that we're part of nature to the extent that we're no really different than a tree or an ant or any animal or the universe or creation because we call the Great Spirit Wankantanka Tangasha, otherwise grandfather God, or God, the great creator, created us humans in a way that we're part of all this because we have to look at the seven elements. In the beginning, there was fire, which was the Big Bang, and there was the earth, there was the water, there was the air elements, those four. You're seeing the Big Dipper and the four stars there. And then you have the plants coming in, and then you have the animals coming after that, and human beings, the seventh element. And the Big Dipper, you'll see that seven stars. And that spiritual paradigm indicates that all creation, we're part of that in a sense. Every atom and molecule in all creation, we're all part of that. So when we say, when we talk about, I see all my relations, all my relatives, we're all related. It's a spiritual paradigm of a collective whole of the spirit of humankind. Okay, so there's a humankind. You can break it down into races and all these other subdivisions, but there's one humankind which is different from the animal kind because the animal kind is the sixth element. We're the seventh element, or you might call it the seventh chakra. So humankind is what we're talking about. We're all related in that sense, but we're also related to everything down to the smallest quark and subatomic particle that's all in us, even the small black holes that are in between those subatomic particles. It all is part of energy. So this is what we mean by that we're all related. It's not a political thing or really a cultural issue. It's a human thing. As a humankind off the face of the earth would only leave animal kind, plant kind, mineral kind, water kind, air kind, fire kind.
Yeah. So, yeah. Thanks, Renee.
For our viewers, if you could just quickly explain the difference between Wonka Tonka and Tenkashala. I think people want to know more about that.
Wakatanka's great grandfather. Tunkashla is like grandfather, but Wakatanka is like the maker of all things, of everything.
Yeah, the Great Spirit.
Yeah. And then, and Tunkashla is kind of like, Tunkashla is like father, like dad. I mean, just, like a child, we should speak like that to, Tunkashla, like father, dad, can you hear me?
Yeah, this paradigm is between heaven and earth, just like down in the Inca people, we have Pachamama. Okay, so we as a human being, we have a mother and a father and children and grandchildren and great grandfather and grandfather. There's a family called seven generations. All right. So we have a father and grandfather, which is in the heavens, you might say, between heaven and earth, and a grandmother and a mother earth. So we have Unchi Macaw and Macaw. So we have a family, male and female in the heavens and earth, where you have that relationship between a father and a grandfather, a mother and a grandmother, and we as humankind in between are three generations, the father, mother, children, brother and sister, and then our grandchildren and so on like that. So this paradigm is a lot different from the Western because it's a very collective concept, very different from the Marxian communist collective concept. That's a Western philosophical one. We have a spiritual philosophy. and a governance way of understanding things in a way that our Northern Plains tribes, see, we weren't people with villages. We have villages up north of the Rika and Mandan who built villages and they lived in a community. Our communities were mobile and moved around the Black
A
Hills.
lot of people don't know this, but the Ojibwe people, were actually part of the Riccara. They had many, many mounds. They had almost 2,000 mounds in the state of Michigan from the very bottom of the mid all the way up to the top. And, so when expansion came with colonization, they just built right over them, got rid of whatever was there and, built right over the mounds. And so the Riccara, so we are traditionally, those who were the first people, are Riccara. But I wanted to say
So,
the kinship and the kinship system and our cultural ways. When I came here, like I said, I wanted to bring back the cradle board. So all my grandchildren were in humpapa, unshi, umpapi, like, and that's a cradle board. And also, my grandson was raised in a cradle board. He's 29 with 3 kids of his own. But what happened was is that when he was little, I never he always addressed everybody according to the kinship, like mom, dad,
okay.
auntie, whatever. He didn't know any other way. So if he saw a stranger and saw an older woman, he would call her, grandma, unchi. And I remember going to Minneapolis when he was little, even when he was like 8 or 10, he would address people like, hi, auntie, hi, grandma. Even though he might not know them, but he would call them that. He didn't know any different, and he never called like an Ojibwe name. We don't, in old time days, they didn't call people by their first name. They'd always address them like auntie, uncle, mom and
Now,
dad.
one of the biggest questions that I have from my viewers, my audience, and people all around the world, I know you're Lakota, but what can you tell me about the Hopi prophecy?
I just know a little bit about the Hopi prophecy because our Ojibwe people have their own prophecy. The Lakota have the Star Nation, collective Star Nation,
The Star people.
whatever, what do you call it, historical kind of teachings. But Ojibwe people had a prophecy too about the split of the United States, about the how bad times are coming, which haven't come yet. But there were some people that say that we were going to, the earth is going to change, and which it is now. We
It
suffering
is.
from really high heat these past days, and it's like, and hardly drought in places, and everybody takes a hamburger or a grocery store, for, but living out here, there's 16,000 farms have actually folded up. And so I don't know where they're getting all the beef from. I don't know if it is beef, but that's the way that it's becoming. And you'll see it. The older people said, watch the sky, watch the earth, whatever, because um, everything might be changing, and
Right.
that the people need to learn their traditional ways. They need to go back
Absolutely.
to the earth. And so I taught all my kids how to hunt and have a bow, and how to put up a teepee, how to put up a lodge, how to find food, how to shoot a gun, how to shoot a bow and arrow, and how to clean an animal, how to hunt, and how to find herbs and the other foods in the earth. So that's what we live by still today. Is That's why I wanted to leave that for my children and grandchildren. Is that, listen, young ones, you need to listen. You need to listen to your grandparents while they're here. You need to listen to your auntie and uncle, and when they tell stories, listen, because it might help you in your later days' lives, because we never know what's going to happen in the future.
Right.
We can say, well, maybe somebody had a dream and said this was going to happen, that going to happen. So we must prepare ourselves all the time. We have our bug out bag in the car. and how to learn simple ways and how to get water. Water is the number one thing that we need to have is safe, clean
Mini-Wachoni.
water. Hmm?
Mini-Wachoni, or in Hawaii they say Ole Kovai, water is life.
Right, right. That's what you gotta have. You gotta have water first, and but without clean water, we don't even drink the water here. We go buy it. We travel 45 miles down the road every week or two to get clean water. So that's how we do the water now. But yeah, but I know how to live that way. I could live in what a sweat lodge looks like, right? That's an old
Right.
time lodge the people used to live in. I could live that way. I know how to cook over a fire. I know how to make tools. As a grandma, I can do that. How to find wood. Um, Plants is another thing that people need to learn to survive.
Absolutely.
If they don't know the plant, or whatever, they can mistake it for a poisonous plant and die. I mean, you have to know your plants. So that's what I've been teaching my kids, and now they're grown up. Hopefully their children are learning those things now.
Yeah, I
So
heard that
one
was
question I get a lot, I
70s.
apologize if I interrupted, but
Okay.
everybody asks me, and I'm not sure if it's true, but they say that the traditional Lakota elders believe that the star people, that they came from like the star people. What's the story behind that?
I I've seen the star people. Out here we've seen UFOs, we've seen star people a couple of times. I saw they came to me and said, did you know that you were this is kind of like I don't know if they have that belief too. I think the Hopi do because the Hopi actually I think saw star people and they came and
Yeah,
lived
they believe
among.
in the same.
Yeah. But they came to me and asked me, and they look like blue, like translucent with like a aqua, like a aura about them. A family came and they said, don't you remember us? And so,
Yeah,
but it took me a while to figure out, okay, they told me I found out where it was called Arcturus. Well, Arcturus
sure.
is and it happened to be that Arcturus was closest for us to visibly see it on the Earth the night that I had that visitation. And it's if you look at the Big Dipper and the handle goes like that at the very end of it like that, you'll see that star. And so it took me a while, and I was like, were there's any planets around there? And somebody said, I don't think so. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I woke and I had that, I was like, wait a minute. It could be another dimension because the possibilities of other worlds beyond this dimension or reality that we see could be different. So, yeah.
Right.
So yeah,
It was
we
a
But there is
it
a
was a
story about
shocker to me because
quick.
I was a DJ. I always had blue hair. And I remember first coming to the reservations, both Lakota and Hopi, they thought I was something that I could never believe in. Um, that I would help bring peace to the world. But now I'm giving this opportunity, this video series, this reality show. Um, I'm starting to believe in it. And I might not be the answer. I'm no Jesus. I'm no Messiah. But I want to do anything I can to end racism, hate, and violence across nations and other countries because I'm sick of it.
Yeah, well, I think some star nations don't have that actually. The higher realms, I don't think have those types of things going on with their humans, in their planets. I mean, about hate and anger and stuff like that. I think they have grown, and they're much more advanced than us, but it's not what you see like on TV where the aliens are coming trying to attack and kill like human beings and stuff like that. I think it's
Yeah.
the opposite. I think there are some maybe, not good ones, but I think there's, good
Well,
ones. come visit.
People
But
believe
then,
what they hear on the news. And to be
yeah,
honest, when I first moved into this international hostel a year ago or over a year ago, I was a little timid and I didn't talk to people for almost a month because everybody's from a different country. And I was raised to be fearful of that. But then after a while, I bought music instruments, we play pool. We've never had an altercation. They're actually the nicest people from all over Israel, Germany, everywhere. We have sometimes we have 34 beds, and sometimes each bed is a different country. And so
mm,
it really opened my eyes to where I need to do something. I need to show the world to stop watching the news and to see something like this. And that's what my vision is to introduce people to other countries, other nations, to get a real understanding that's not propaganda or news or Trump.
Yeah, I've been over 35 countries myself, and the reason why I took the sacred pipe to the 7 continents from the Black Hills, we have a creation story. It's different from the Hopi prophecy. And connecting the 7 continents to the Black Hills for world peace and unity and solidarity, one humankind and one red blood, Matakweyasi, that's a spiritual philosophy of the Lakota Sioux and Dakota and Nakota. The creation story of the Black Hills talk about a time scientists would call Pangea, but the creation story goes back to where all the people, the seventh creation, were one and living in harmony on Earth. And there was a time and period where they disunified and they started fighting and they were living like they are doing today, but way back then they were even worse. So the Earth Mother, Unchi Macaw and Macaw, the grandmother, the Mother Earth, called her children back, okay, and to stop all this behavior that they were doing. So many of those children laughed at her, ignored her, divorced from her, and this kind of went the other way. Well, a few of them heard her voice and migrated to the Black Hills to live in peace and harmony. So when that happened, the Earth Mother grieved and cried, and therefore she shook, caused volcanoes and great floods, and destroyed almost all of humankind and animal and plant kind. We call it the Great Flood in the Bible with Noah, but it happened. So at that time, the teaching was the mountains ran east and west. And as a sign, like Noah had the rainbow of a covenant, our covenant was the mountains now ran north and south. And if humankind lives in the same manner or way again, the Mother Earth or Grandmother Earth will cause the same catastrophic calamity that happened in the first place and destroyed humanity. So it is an utmost necessity that we follow the concept, spiritual concept of Mitakwayase, that we're all my relations. In other words, all the relations. It means every atom and molecule. We have to live in this. So I spent over 12 years, actually from 96, traveling. I've been over 35 countries and 7 continents to bring the message of Mitakwayase, all my relatives, all my relations. And I was up in Greenland up there in Sisamua, which is the middle of on the west coast. They're making relations and singing at 2 sacred mountains, Woman's Hat and the Eagle Mountain, with 2 Inuit sisters and the sacred pipe to make a relations with those tribal people. The Inuits are very similar to the northern tribes, and taking that prayer all the way down to Ushuaia in Chile with that tribe and over to Antarctica. The whole point was praying for world peace on a virgin continent called Antarctica, where no human blood was shed, only animals lived there. So I spent years doing this, and now that's set in place. So now we're in the next phase to achieve that. So it's not a political issue, it's really a spiritual issue in the sense that in the Jewish religion, the Old Testament, Cain killed Abel out of jealousy and anger and hatred. And that's built into us, where Abel was a man of peace and prosperity and did good works and offerings to the Great Spirit God, and out of jealousy, murder was created. So we've been living that way as a humankind ever since that happened in the Old Testament. But in the Lakota religion, humankind actually was living we were a very good creation, but it went awry, went astray where humankind is like today, full of hate and angry and religions that are fighting each other and want to conquer the world, the politics of it all. So I understand where you're coming from, and I had to do
Yeah.
something. I had to have a base. My base comes from the Lakota creation story and the sacred Black Hills, which we call as the center of everything that is. And what's in the heavens is on earth. So our sacred Black Hills for us is the center of the universe, you might say, for us. So that prayer had to be taken and deposited on the 7 continents to unify what was once Pangea, now broken apart, vicariously brought back again. Now we can start talking world peace with humankinds, with peace accords, agreements, and all these other things. But you have to unite the mountains and the earth first, which I did. Now, secondly, the hardest part is the humankind part.
Yep, humans
Uh,
are the hardest
the
part.
world just evolves so quickly, and I want to share a very vulnerable point about my life that I've been fighting for world peace for 15 years. And earlier this year, I gave up. I said it's never going to happen. Started drinking a lot, and I gave that up. But I made one reach out and I sent emails to all these movie companies, reality shows, and they said, you know what? Nobody's ever done this. And because we're in a day of age where people are hooked on their phone, reality show, and TV, this is our time. This is our time to speak, to use our voice, and to share our stories. And now I fully believe that peace is possible. It's going to take time, but I can
Right,
see it now.
right. It's really hard to do that. You have to start with families first, and families, you could have all the festivals or whatever, but if the whole family unit isn't there, then how are we going to do it? I mean, but with
Right.
kids, with kids, we could tell people are the way of life, in a brief, what do you call it, 4-day festival or whatever. At least they will hear that there is another way, and they will seek it out further, and how to find peace within themselves and peace within their own families. And I think that's what these young kids come to festivals. They're searching for other ways of life or other ways of thinking, and they like that. And so if we want to bring peace to the world, we have to teach by teaching first of within ourselves. How did we get that peace? And then we share it.
Yeah, we have
Yeah,
When
we
we
got to make the change for our children and our children's children. As you
Right.
know me, I was a DJ for 25 years. I played at festivals, and people stop dancing. They start putting drugs up their nose, and it got depressing for me. I said, "This is." I almost lost faith in humanity, and I didn't think it would ever happen. But now things just magically came together here in Peru. Your interview, the other interviews that I'm having, it's beautiful, and I really believe, breathe, hope, and pray in every way that makes just a dent to remove the hatred and racism in this world.
Well, the spiritual peace is an inner being peace. And when we talk about, we use the word Lakota, it's a word of peace, okay? And we have that spiritual paradigm imbued in the sacred pipe, uh, and the teachings of the sacred pipe and our 7 sacred rites. But also, if you really look at it, world peace is predicated on the individual person. When you look at I've traveled all around all these countries and seen a lot of cultures. And when you look at the Middle East, the Arabs, the Islamic Jihad, the Africans, I spent time in South Africa along with Swazis and in Johannesburg and down in Swaziland and with Zulus. I looked at their paradigms. Our paradigm of world peace starts with a person. And like I said, way back with Adam and Eve, they were out of the Garden of Eden. We didn't have peace. We had Cain killed Abel. So we're always going to have that dichotomy of anger, hatred, greed, selfishness. we have love and all the other positive things. And in the center 0 point, it's a perfect balance. But we're never perfectly balanced. We either tilt one way or the other all the time, constantly, kind of like a wobbling plate. So world peace is predicated on the inner being. If you have peace within yourself that can radiate, like you want to call radiant acquiescence. In other words, you radiate peace to your aura body. Peace comes as an individual. Now, I'm a very peaceful person, but there was that time I might blow my top because as a human being, we have this other side of us called anger, and aggression. And that has to be bridled. And you can bridle it from the day you were born, but you can bridle it also being taught by your parents and your family and your extended family.
Practice.
Or you can practice it through teachings like the Tibetan Buddhists or the Hindu teachings. But the Buddhist teachings also, Buddha talked about that in the Eight Noble, in the Noble Truths and the teachings that he had. The inner being is what you have to look at. You can't look for enlightenment out there in the universe. It's in yourself. You don't need to run around the world looking for enlightenment when you can just turn to your own inner being. And that's where it starts. So if you take almost 8 billion people and you can't eradicate that hatred, anger, and aggression out of a human being, we'd have paradise on earth. This earth is not to be a paradise. It's a dichotomy between good and evil, like in the Old Testament, Lucifer was cast down upon the earth, okay, controlling the earth and the people. So we're in that balance between left and right, up and down, right or wrong, good or bad dichotomy paradigm. So we can't have peace as long as we have evilness in us.
Yeah.
We have to bridle that. And that's not bridled. It's pretty difficult for some people to do, especially when you have people killing each other over religious ideologies and other false ideologies.
Yeah, so now for soldiers that come back for war, they got this thing called Call Me Go. Go to callmego.com. So when you're getting all razzled and whatever like that, it's almost kind of like one of those things. It doesn't have no medication in it, but it actually helps you to make a change of your thinking with that. And I think it has to do with the when you're breathing into it and breathing out of it. It kind of is like a physical device to help you to change your mind. It's a practice too, But I was like, now they got even things that watches probably. They got things like for sleep apnea. You just you go to sleep and you put this thing on here and it's got an electrical volt in it. So if you stop breathing, a little small charge comes out and wakes you up. I mean, and I was thinking about what about a wristwatch, if you're getting really angry, it goes to like 10 modes, and you're getting really fiery angry, it's going to 10, right? And it'll like just like well, just thinking that kind of stuff. But practice. I didn't learn about the practice of anything until I learned it from Thich Nhat Hanh. And then also we have our Dharma days. I have my Dharma days where I would just read. I would read, with books or something that makes sense. I'll take whatever I can from it, and whatever it takes to find you well-being, peace, or whatever. Sometimes listening to something different and practicing, having something to practice. Now, let's Lakota people don't have books, so that you can't look in a book to say now you can. Now you can. There are some books of how you can change your thought and your behavior for your own well-being. And Thich Nhat Hanh has this book that he has some practices in it, and it kind of reminds us we need to actually, if your mom and dad have gone away or whatever, but you didn't get a chance to talk to them, they're available in the moment, in the present moment. And you can take them for a walk and talk to them and come back and saying, okay, Dad, I didn't get to see this or do this, but I'm taking you with me to have a good day today. And I thought that practice was really good. And unfortunately, we should be able to have that in Native people. We're talking about the circle of life and collective people or whatever like that. But boarding schools and everything else that's going on, trauma and family and whatever, has separated us to the point of not knowing who the heck we are. So we need the doctrines of other practices to help us learn how to just be, just not to worry about what we can be or not be. Colonization has forced us to say, okay, all right, what do you do for a living? I breathe. I mean, why is that important to other people? What do you do for a living? I mean, I live. And that's part of the teaching. It's just learn how to be and accept yourself no matter what other people think. They're on the other spectrum of the path of learning how to live in a more mindful, present way. But so that whatever people say to us, it's not going to hurt our well-being. You look at them and say, okay, some of them are really nasty. They're wounded. They're a human being. So you got to love the human being. It's just that behavior, whatever they learned it from or whatever, and they're not ready to see it or change it. You just accept them as a human being, and maybe you could help them somehow, but maybe they'll bite you too. So, you just leave them alone until they're ready to come to you. So we've learned a lot of things in life, and I made myself learn a lot of things in life, and so did he. But you have to take the risk to make the change, to do something that you haven't done before, and to see what the outcome is. Is it positive or negative? Is it going to help my life or not? So that's the things that I think we all look, and I'm just talking about me personally. Like, I've learned a lot of things. I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm just
Oh yeah, me too.
human beings, and just like Ram Dass says, we're all taking each other home. That's when you look at other human beings.
So, I
When
lived
I
in Europe for about 8 years in
Right.
1999. And so I experienced the cultures of Germany, of Switzerland, of Spain, of Italy, of Austria, Slovakia, Slovenia, and over in France, and over in England, and Scotland, and Ireland. And when I did my prayers, I worked with the indigenous concepts like the Celtic people in Ireland around Tara and that area, or the Scottish people up in island of Lewis where the standing Stonehenge is, that's older than Stonehenge, or in Glastonbury and Camelot where the Druids were, and the fairy people of Ireland. I also was down in Crete, the cave of Zeus, and I was in Egypt and Kilimanjaro. Been a lot of different places, and the people that I met and prayed with were, you might call them people of light, but there is a large contingent on a global level in terms of having 7.5 billion people. There are a number of people that believe in world peace. It's a spiritual paradigm because it's not a political or intellectual paradigm, because we can talk about peace and love all we want, like we did with the Flower Children back in the 60s, but it never went anyplace. It has to be much deeper, and it's a spiritual issue. Because as long as you're an atheist or a person that's not spiritual, don't believe anything or comprehend spiritual, you won't understand the inner peace, because that's a very deep level that's beyond intellectualization. So you have to manifest it in actual being. In other words, you have to live it. You can't just think, oh, I'm going to be a peaceful person or a loving person. You have to be a loving and a peaceful person by actualizing it and self-actualizing it. So I traveled around the world, and the people I met with, there are people out there that believe in this, and it is a collective, in a sense, a collective consciousness of the spirit of humankind that desires world peace. And then there's a collective consciousness like Cain killed Abel, that want to murder, rape, and mayhem and do all kinds of violence. There's that part of the world too that think like that, very dark and evil and sinister. And yet there are people that are loving, people of God, you might say, or the Great Spirit. So we're in a spiritual battle right now between that good and evil. And if you take the side of standing up for good or peace or love, you're standing with the Great Spirit. And that battle then becomes with you and you might call Lucifer or Satan or evil or dark forces, whatever you want to call it. But there is the opposite in this binary concept of good and evil. So you might say half the world is evil and the other half is good. And one is going to take over the other. But right now we're in a kind of a stalemate where sometimes the good wins and the evil loses and vice versa. The point is, in our lifetime between 0 and 100 years old, we join the fight, but there's a point when you cross over to the other side of life, you leave the fight and you're into another reality, a different kind of paradigm. So this paradigm, we pray and we don't fight for peace because that don't make sense. You can't fight in a sense. Peace. If you're a fighter, you're not a peaceful person. So we have to use different
Right.
word terminology. We don't fight for world peace. We pray for world peace, and we are world peace. We come for world peace. We teach it, but it has to go through all the religions and cultures of all the countries I've been in and on all the continents. There is a commonality, and I see this in children. When you have really kind of young children, they're more naive and pure in this sense because they haven't really been brainwashed by their culture or their parents or their country or tribe or politics and so on. And that commonality you can see in every newborn baby, Metakoyasi, we're all related. As soon as they grow up, you change. You're not the same as it was when you were at birth as now. You become evil or you become good. But at birth, you're normal, you're neutral. You're not neither good or evil. You're just there. I mean, you're pure. So
One important question I want to ask, because people ask me, you may know, you may not know, but have you ever heard of the name Wu Chosen Rushing Wind Eagle, the changer of the winds that meets the condor? Does that resonate to you at all?
yeah,
Wendigo does, to me, because we used to have those I guess in early times, talked about Wendigo stories. But, yeah, we've heard about the condor and the eagle meeting or
Mike.
something.
I did do that happen. I was in Italy, and in southern Italy in Florence, I heard there was a conference going on. There was a man giving a talk. It was called the Miracle Yabar from Cusco, Peru, and he has a spirit name called the Condor. So when I heard about that, my name is Walking Eagle, Wambui Mane. So I'm Walking Eagle, and I heard this. So I said, I got to meet this guy. So I went down to meet him after his conference was over. And in the building where he was doing the talk, there's a basement. So we went down below there and we did a sacred ceremony. I did mine and he did his. And he gave me a condor feather off the condor, blessed by the condor. His name was called the Condor. And he lived in Cusco, outside of Cusco, Peru. He's a medicine man. So I gave this condor feather to her to use in her ceremony. But I gave him an eagle feather and he gave me the condor feather. So we exchanged the concept of the condor and the eagle meeting, and we did ceremonies together and blessed each other and made ourselves brothers as the eagle and condor. So when I went down to Peru to go to Huayna Picchu, I was trying to find the man, the condor, but at the time I did find him, but he was out of town at the time. Okay, so I wasn't able to meet with him when I was down in Peru. But that took place now. I don't know if that's relevant to the story about the eagle and condor, but it's relevant to me because I'm Walking Eagle and he's the condor, and we did meet, and we did have a ceremony, and we did exchange feathers, and she does have that condor feather. It's about that long. So
What did you
What it
find out
means for
about it?
me, what it meant for me is 2 years ago, I went to Bob Wonder's house, Wonder Bob, over in Crestone, Colorado, and we had a retreat called Earthstock, where we invited 25 Native American chiefs. And they had their own private meetings, but they invited me into their meeting, and they grounded it into me that my name was Muchosen Russian Wind Eagle, and I had to go to South America to meet the condor. And I'm still like, yeah, I have seen some condors, but I don't know if that's like a physical person. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, but it was an honor to be acknowledged by all of these chiefs at Wonder Bob's retreat center. And I immediately left that week. And that's when I started my journey out here. And I will stay here until I'll die for world peace. That's how important it is for me.
I think condors are just we've had condors come down here. They used to fly when the what do you call it? The jet stream was like straight up, but it's changed now. So we used to travel during springtime from South Dakota, Nebraska, back east. And so they follow that jet stream, condors and eagles would fly up that jet stream, but they could fly for miles and be here very quickly. But there's stories that even the Cherokee had about the condor, and I've
Right.
seen condors like in even Virginia. They were like the size of humans. I mean, really big birds. And even Cherokees had stories, and people from Ohio, native people, had stories about how these condors would come and they would steal their children. And there's stories still, I guess, to make sure that kids stay closer to the house so nothing happened to them. So the parents would tell them stories about the big bird that's going to come and get them. And so, yeah, they were huge birds, but they're like one of the biggest birds that can fly higher than an eagle. And
Wow.
I think the condor means too is to have strength, and you didn't have to go anywhere to find a physical condor, but to have strength inside yourself, to fly freer than you ever been free, to have peace like you're working at within yourself, more peace than you ever had, and to just to learn to learn that when you're free, does it all matter? Does it?
There is a story about the colibri, the hummingbird, Inti. Okay, so
Indeed.
that colibri is the one that flew towards the sun the highest on the back of the condor. We have a story where magpie was on the back of the buffalo and flew a race that saved humanity. So the bird people, bird Oyate, you want to call them the bird nation, is very
Bird tribe.
important. That's why these feathers are used. When I was down in Peru, I took a trip on a bus that went into an area. It's a valley near Inca, the city or town of Inca in that valley. And the bus stopped at a restaurant stop. So I was sitting there eating and I was looking at that valley and I had a deja vu. Like I knew this valley, like I was born here, like I lived here in my past life. And I understood that valley because they had all these huge ruins that were made out of huge stone blocks fit together tightly in that area. But I did have an experience like as if I had lived there before in the past in Peru, that I was
Hey,
part of the Inca Nation there.
well, I really appreciate the both of you being doing this interview. I actually want to do 2 or 3 more interviews with you guys because you have so much information to share to the world. Um, but I also the producers are telling me not to keep them that long, and I have a couple more interviews I want to do today. But let me know your availability, and let's do some. Let's talk more about things.
Okay, we'll do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know
Great.
your
Okay,
availability. I'm kind of trying to do as many video calls as possible because my associate from London is taking me to Cusco tomorrow to buy actual camera equipment, lapel mics, tripods, things we really need. But the videos come out pretty good. And what I'm doing is I'm subtitling them in Spanish so that the people here understand. But Ashe Hotek Hariom in Lakesh Asaba Luego, Aho Matakuyasid, praise Jah, hallelujah. Om Gam Gam Ganapati Namahalo Ka Asamasa Suki no Bhavantu. Praise Jah because Jah knows I and I and I. It's been such an honor and respect to have you both with me. You saved my life. You adopted me. You changed my world. And I don't have words to express my gratitude for you.
Yeah, we love you, Scooby. Yeah, stay safe and And remember to pray whenever you feel lonely or something. You can call me anytime. Call us. Just make sure you pray. Best way you know
I
how.
do.
Go for a walk and stay in the present moment.
Yeah, who
I'm
knows? The
teaching
Lord
the
may wanna
people
come to
here how
Peru
to use malas and how to do different mantras. I'm doing a lot of workshops here, and that's part of
Oh,
our new community. Is
yeah, one of the best mantras that I know that I just love is called the Mula mantra. You can get it on YouTube. The Mula mantra, because it expresses peace and puts you back, okay, the oneness of all, and you'll feel.
yeah.
So look for the Mula mantra.
I like Om Mani Padme Hum because it's the Buddhist.
Yeah.
I don't conform to any religion, but I am very spiritual,
Yeah.
and I know that both of you are. I can't
Mhm.
wait till we do our next interview. And like I said to all my viewers, click that subscribe button. If I get 1,000 subscribers, I don't care if I have to go over there and grab these guys. You're coming with me to Peru.
Yeah, you will, everybody you have, be safe, peace for you, peace for within yourself, keep you healthy, keep you happy, and keep you fed, and happiness to everybody.
Yeah,
Gracias. Mahalo. I'll talk to you soon, and much love to the both of you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Lakota and Matakoyase, and we say, never say really goodbye.
Yeah.
Doksha means see you later.
See you
Because
later.
we always see
Well,
each other.
Hawaii
Whether it's
is
or the next.
aloha anui nui, which means we'll see you soon.
Okay. Love you,
All right,
Scooby.
I'll talk to you all very soon. I love you
Okay.
so much.
Love you too.
Mahalo.
Bye.
Where's he coming from? The US? He's back here.